Creature Commandos is officially over, which means it's time to excitedly await DC's upcoming Superman movie. And since we're waiting for the summer of Superman, which, in case you didn't know, DC is going to be spending the entire summer highlighting Superman thanks to James Gunn's Superman movie, I thought now would be the perfect time to give the DCEU a proper send-off. That's right, this will be the final time that I discuss the DCEU in a video on this channel. Some might even say this may be the final time that I get to shift the hierarchy and power of the DCEU in a video as well. If you didn't get it by now, yes, I'm going to air out all of my thoughts, opinions, and grievances about each and every DCEU film. Let's finally rank and review the entire DCEU in a tier list. Enjoy. So here we are. We have our tier list. I will read each and every tier and then we'll begin. So, the best DCEU movies ever made. A good movie. It's fine. Awful, bad, not good, sucks. The worst DCEU movies ever made, and of course, not a DCEU movie because Peacemaker's not a DCEU movie, and I plan on making a Peacemaker video in the future closer to Peacemaker Season 2. But for now, we will begin with Man of Steel. And Man of Steel is fine. It's a fine movie. Like, I don't hate this movie. I know a lot of people hate it. I know a lot of people love it. I'm kind of just like in the middle where it's like, I love certain things about Man of Steel. For instance, I love the flight scene. I think that is one of the best scenes in terms of visual effects in comic book movie history. I like, or at least could see the potential of Henry Cavill's Superman. I like, or at least can appreciate a lot of the soundtrack because the soundtrack is phenomenal. But where the movie falls apart for me is the religious symbolism and the last entire half of the movie where it's just all fighting and all action and complete and utter destruction. Like, there's certain times where too much is a bad thing, and that's the prime example of having too much, because that just is so frustrating and it kind of drains life out of the movie. And on top of that, I've seen the recent spike in memes where if you can name this Man of Steel villain, then you must really love the movie or whatever. Like, I saw that joke going around on the internet for the last couple of weeks at the time of this video, and it's just like, yeah, I get it, because even I had to look up who she was, because even I, who has covered every one of these movies, didn't know who she was. So yeah, and you know, I kind of wish Henry Cavill got to show more joy, childlike wonder, had more moments of humility, so to speak. But because this movie lacks that, it's kind of hard for me to say it's a good movie. And more importantly, I feel like Man of Steel really needed to do anything other than what was done at the end of the movie with Zod. I just feel like killing Zod was a terrible choice. That kind of ruined the movie for a ton of people. And unfortunately, I just think that if they did anything else, literally, they could have gone bowling together. They could have got lunch together. They could have gone on a date. And it would have been like, you know, that's weird, but that's better than seeing Superman kill someone in front of a ton of people. Like, terrible line of thinking. Just, oh my god, that alone ruined everyone's perception, not only of Superman, but of the movie, to the point where it's still debated to this very day. And because of that, you know, it's just fine. It has its flaws. I wouldn't be totally against the idea if someone was like, hey, you want to watch Man of Steel? I'll be like, sure, like, okay, like, it is what it is. I'm down. Why not? But yeah, it's just okay. But Batman v Superman, oh my god, talk about a movie. Batman v Superman is just not good. It sucks. And I want to put it in one of the worst DCEU movies ever made here, but there are just so many bad movies on this list that the one thing that I could take away from Batman v Superman, and just for clarification and just for communication's sake, I've only seen the Dawn of Justice extended edition, so I have the full picture in my head. I just like the final act. I think when the DC Trinity is finally together and joking and laughing and bouncing off each other and doing action-packed moments, it's just like, wow, this is where the movie works. This is the best part of the movie. But it takes so long to get to that point that it just doesn't feel like a payoff. It feels more like a, you know what, here, you sat through this, here, you deserve this at the very least. Everything else about this movie sucks. Like, there's too much talking, there's too much exposition, the movie is just so boring. And it just, everything feels so drawn out. And I rewatched this movie within the last year at the time of recording this video. And it's just like, if there was a movie before this, so it was Man of Steel, a Batman movie like that should have been there, and then Batman v Superman that comes full circle and kind of paints the picture as to why Batman, you know, hates Superman in the Batman movie, then you're like, okay, like everything is set. We don't have to explain everything. We don't have to introduce Batman. We don't have to introduce Gotham. We don't even need to introduce Wonder Woman, so to speak. Like even though I think it handles that relatively well, but the point is we wouldn't need to set so much of the groundwork to get to where you want to be, because by the time you get there, it's just not satisfying. It is so beyond frustrating, and I hate this movie. This movie is a boring slog, but because it has a good final act, I am not putting it in the worst tier. However, the first movie that I will put in the worst tier is Suicide Squad. Psych is going in the awful, bad, not good tier. You want to know why? Because of two key reasons. Okay? Reason number one, I love the Suicide Squad soundtrack. I am so unapologetic about that. The soundtrack was a moment to be had. Sucker for Pain still slaps to this day. I still listen to Purple Lamborghini. I still cannot believe that they somehow managed to create this cohesive story within the album and also just make an album worth listening to all these years later. It is a good album. I'm sorry. Like, I am willing to use that as a key reason to say that it's not one of the worst movies. And on top of that, we also got Harley Quinn and Margot Robbie. I mean, Margot Robbie, oh my gosh, she went to go on to do Barbie. I saw Barbie. I liked Barbie. But like Harley Quinn, she took over the world. She was everywhere. She was in Comic-Con. Everyone was cosplaying her. Everyone was obsessed with her. Everyone was just, oh my God, we love Harley Quinn. So because this movie gave us that, I am willing to put it above the worst here. Those are the only two reasons, because everything else about this movie, disaster. The cast sucks. The plot sucks. Enchantress, boring. Don't care about her CGI brother that says nothing throughout the movie. Don't care about any of that, okay? I don't even care about the fun 5-minute scene in the beginning of the movie where Batman comes and he meets Deadshot or whatever. Don't care. All of that, bad. All of that sucks. But Margot Robbie doesn't suck. Harley Quinn doesn't suck. The soundtrack doesn't suck. So therefore, it still sucks. But those two key things outweighs everything else. And I just want to say, okay, so I am someone that used to be team release the full David Ayer cut, because I personally believe that no artist, no visionary, no creative person deserves to have their work butchered and then released and then have that represent them, even though it doesn't. Like, I've always said that, but I just don't care anymore. And I just don't have any emotional attachment to seeing this movie rediscussed. I don't care about seeing a different cut that was marginally better. I'm at the point where I'm okay not seeing it, just because like we've all made our peace with it. It sucked when it came out, but it was a pop culture moment. The album was good. Everyone loved Harley Quinn. Everyone was obsessed with the Joker. Like, it was a moment, okay? And guess what? Even though it was bad, it still had its effect, positive effects, so more to speak, in pop culture history. So just let it be. Yeah, it was a bad movie. Yeah, it sucks, but I really do not think, if you ask I don't know, the average moviegoer that actually goes to see every Marvel movie, that goes to see every blockbuster like Mission Impossible, Jurassic Park, or any Disney movie. I know that's a weird audience, but the point is, the average moviegoer, if you tell them, remember that Suicide Squad movie from way back that's, introduced Harley Quinn and introduced Sucker for Pain and all these things, like, if you ask them, do you want to see like a different cut of that? They'll probably just be like, not really. So I think, as much as it might sound mean, as much as it might sound horrible to say, I'm just team forget about the David era cut. Just let it go. Let us make peace with it. Let us just move on. It's okay. We already got another Suicide Squad movie, and we'll discuss that shortly. But the point is, we don't need that. Now, the next movie we have to talk about here is Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman is a good movie. Okay, look. Wonder Woman was the first moment in DC history after the Nolanverse where people finally felt like DC got everything together. This was the moment when we were all just like, oh my God, this movie's good. They finally did it. They figured it out. They listened to our criticisms. Oh my God, the ball's gonna roll from here on out, and we're gonna go to every movie release, and this is it. This was everything to everyone and everything to me. I have seen this movie 5 times in theaters. I have seen this movie so much on digital streaming service that I am able to recite the movie's plot by memory. That's how well I know Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is a fantastic movie. It is a heartfelt movie. The supporting cast brings out the best in Gal Gadot. Like, we've seen what Gal Gadot looks like without a good supporting cast, and we'll get there. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot to say about that. But the point is, in this case and in this movie, she ruled. We were all in love with, Wonder Woman. We loved the theme song. We loved it all. Okay, we ate that up. And this movie deserves credit for being one of the only DC movies for me to be able to be like, you know what? I love this movie. It's just, there are a few other movies that I love a little more than this. But for the most part, Wonder Woman, it's a good movie. I think it flows perfectly. I like the third act, even though, yes, I know for a lot of people, the third act is hit or miss. Really, if it depends on the person. But it works for me. I understand the flow. I wish they kind of made the mystery a little stronger regarding who Ares is. But to see, Wonder Woman cry after Steve sacrifices himself, and we're like, oh my God, Steve, oh my God. And she's holding the thing and she throws it, and she's like, no, I have to be better, and I have to go fight Ares, and I have to bring it in and make humankind back. It's just like, oh my God, I ate that up. What a movie. It was fantastic. I love Wonder Woman. But you know what I don't love? I do not love, and I hate with every fiber of my body, Justice League. It is one of the worst DCEU movie. Talk about a disaster. Zack Snyder leaves. He has to, because of a real world of circumstances, he has to pull out of the movie. They bring in Joss Whedon because Joss Whedon just comes off the Avengers, and everyone's like, oh my God, the Avengers, which for most of you who don't know, the Avengers, I was gonna say Wonder Woman, but the Avengers is my favorite Marvel movie. That's just how it is. I love that movie to death, but they bring him in. It makes sense. He just made a successful comic book movie team up. Let's bring in that same guy, and oh my God, talk about a disaster. Completely different side of a movie, complete tonal shift. Didn't even try to kind of mend the two halves to make it make sense as to why the Justice League, who really wasn't a team and wasn't that joyful, is suddenly joyful and making jokes and, having chemistry and bouncing off each other. And then more importantly, the movie, oh my God, talk about a red half. Why was the movie so red? Can someone explain that to me? What was the thought about making the second half of the movie red after the first half was great? That just feels so out of place, so weird. And then on top of that, Steppenwolf in this movie, poor excuse of a villain, terrible design. Everything about this sucks. Justice League, horrible movie, never worth watching. Oh my God, and it doesn't make anything better that we know that there was behind the scenes drama and that Joss Whedon is a terrible person and treated the cast poorly. Like, everything about this movie, awful. The plot, the second half, the reason why it's red, everything that happened behind the scenes, all of it is a bad movie, and I will never change my opinion on this. It is by far a poor excuse of a comic book movie, a terrible DC movie, and more importantly, just an all-around disaster. What a mess. Now, to move on from such a negative movie, such a movie that I hate with such disdain and such a passion, we're going to talk about Aquaman. And Aquaman is not only a good movie, Aquaman is one of the best DCEU movies ever made, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. I know people are gonna boo me, people are gonna tell me I am wrong, people are gonna say that I am ridiculous. How could you say such a thing? What are you thinking? Are you for real? Yes, okay. I love Jason Momoa. I love Jason Momoa's Aquaman because he's such a humble, friendly doofus. He is one of the most lovable comic book characters ever because it's just like, he is so dumb, but he is so brilliant and he's so funny. And more importantly, the movie, the way they handled all the action underwater and the visuals and the ocean and everything about this movie, starting the movie off with Aquaman's dad and the tale of him coming down and going past the lighthouse and waiting because, oh my God, he's at the lighthouse waiting for the love of his life because she promised him the one night when she was taken away that she would come back for him. And you're like, oh my God, I could feel for him. Oh my God, I feel so bad for his dad. I just want him to have a happy ending. And then to end the movie with bright visuals, colorful visuals, and him walking down that one last time and you hear the music and then he goes down and you're like, oh my God, it's gonna happen. And there she is. She comes back and they rejoice, and it is such a happy ending, and it is so beautiful and so emotional. And then not to talk about all the action in the final act where Aquaman and Orm fight each other, because Orm is such a good character as a villain in terms of, you know, representing the typical sibling rivalry where the brothers are fighting for each other and looking for acceptance and also trying to, you know, have the relationship where they get the bond that they need out of their mother and then fighting each other. And then the Aquaman comes out and he's like, I'm gonna bring the ocean. And then they fight with each other in a full-on kaiju war. Like, talk about an awesome movie, action-packed, blockbuster, one hell of a ride. It is so much fun. I will forever be a ride or die Aquaman fan, even though I understand Aquaman fans might not like it because it's not classic Aquaman and he kind of changes way too much about the character. The point is, this movie, despite having a predictable plot, despite having a little too much exposition, and despite being a little too predictable, it is beautiful. It is so much fun. It is engaging. I love everything about this movie, is even including small things like when he goes and he finds out that his mother's alive and they do the slow shot of him coming down and it just lets the sound effects of the water and the light, and you're like, that doesn't work. That's not logical, but you don't care because it is so cool. And then he finally goes to talk to the Kraken thing and he becomes the king of the ocean and he comes back with the suit and he does the thing and it's like this, and you look at him and he's stoic and he goes from being this humble, friendly, you know, doofus kind of to this cool looking superhero that is finally stoic and has learned the lessons that are put onto him. You're like, that is a superhero. This is one hell of a superhero movie. I love Aquaman. I cannot emphasize that enough. And I know most people are gonna be like, you're in the wrong, you're crazy, it's such a predictable mid movie. This is my tier list. You can make your own tier list. It's okay to be in the wrong. Aquaman rules. Now we have, and talk about a disaster, at least the future one. Shazam is a good movie. Shazam's a good movie. I know a lot of people sleep on Shazam because Shazam is one of those movies where it's a little too kiddish. It leans a lot into having child, you know, like themes, considering half the cast is children. And, you know, it's just one of the few superhero movies that we don't really focus on an adult or, you know, an actor who is an adult who's playing a teenager. You get the point. Like, Shazam is brilliant in the sense that it uses the Christmas setting to its advantage because it emphasizes the key element and theme of this movie, which is family. Billy Batson is a character that doesn't really feel like he has a family, and it takes him a very long time to understand that he does have a family and he does belong somewhere. And it's just that growth in terms of him finding his way throughout the holidays and then using the holidays to slowly turn a sad story into a happy story and kind of bringing out the childlike wonder not only in Zachary Levi, who plays a very good counterpart to Asher Angel, who plays Billy Batson, but it also kind of brings out the childlike wonder in the viewer if you're heavily into Christmas. I also think it is self-aware in certain aspects, such as, you know, there's a scene where Shazam and Savannah, the Dr. Savannah, the villain of Shazam, are yelling at each other, right? And they're in the sky, it's at night, they're flying and they're yelling at each other and it's going back and forth. And in most superhero movies, they would be able to hear each other. But I love that they do something simple such as cutting back to each other. And it's like, what? I don't hear you. What? Like, those are the moments of this movie that I find legitimately funny, and I'm glad that we have a superhero movie that's willing to make fun of that and enjoy those moments and have fun with those moments, because those are moments we need more of in comic book movies, because they're comic book. Not everything needs to be serious. And on top of that, I love the Shazam costume. I love when Shazam and his family team up and they unlock superpowers. I love how they work together and it's chaotic and it's funny. I just love everything about this movie. It's just Wonder Woman is better and Aquaman is better. But overall, Shazam is a good movie, and I feel that it's a tad underrated, but I also understand why people might not care to even rewatch Shazam in the future to come to that realization, and we will touch on that a little later on in this video. But for now, we will move on to Birds of Prey, and Birds of Prey is fine. Like, I don't know what else to say. It's a fine movie. Again, a brilliant idea to take Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn and to free her from Joker and figure out what that character looks like. I think for the most part, the idea of giving her an emancipation in terms of let's figure out what makes Harley Quinn, and let's do it throughout a gigantic big movie is a good idea, especially after how much people fell in love with her. I think the movie is visually beautiful. I think there's some genuinely good action scenes, and I don't even find it a great idea of let's try to get into the psyche of Harley Quinn by actually hearing her inner monologue in certain parts of the movie. But first and foremost, this movie's a disaster class in marketing, because who told DC to name this Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn? Who told them to do that? Because that was just the worst possible idea. Like, out of all the ideas they could have named this movie, that is, without a shadow of a doubt, the worst one, because no one knew what this movie was. No one knew this movie's name. No one knew that a Harley Quinn movie released when it came out because of the name. No one in the DC audience, let alone the casual moviegoer, knew who the Birds of Prey was. This movie, first and foremost, should have just been named Harley Quinn, subtitle, Emancipation. Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey. Harley Quinn, anything. And it would have done so much better at the box office, because people would have been like, oh my God, there's a Harley Quinn movie. I should go see Harley Quinn. I loved Harley Quinn. Like, I don't understand what they were thinking. I don't understand the logic, because even though the Birds of Prey play such a key part in Birds of Prey, no one is going to see that movie, or no one was going to see that movie for the Birds of Prey. We were going for Harley Quinn. So that's the first issue I have. Second issue I have is that I rewatched this movie recently for this video because I wanted to be prepared to talk about each and every one of these movies, but I came to the realization that I just don't really care to rewatch Birds of Prey. The plot makes sense. I like Black Mask. I think what it does for a character is great. I love the costumes. I love some of the team up moments, but for the most part, I just didn't really care about the movie. Like, I would put Birds of Prey above Man of Steel without a shadow of a doubt, but it's just like, as a movie, I don't see myself revisiting it often. It's fine, it's enjoyable. I wouldn't put it on the same tier as Wonder Woman or Shazam because I care about those movies and I have a bigger emotional connection with those movies, but I can also acknowledge that it's still a good movie. It's just the marketing disaster with the naming, me not reconnecting with the plot in a way I was hoping, and just me not really caring about the Birds of Prey outside the Huntress. I just don't really have much of an emotional connection or desire to, you know, try to build something towards that movie. It's fine. It's a good movie. It's beautiful in terms of its visuals. It's just, I don't know. I don't really feel much about this movie. But you want to know what I do have a strong connection to? Something that is going to make this video go off the rails. Something that is going to unlock something in me. And you are possibly going to see the more emotional side of me, okay? We'll say that. Wonder Woman 1984, okay? Wonder Woman 1984 is one of the worst superhero movies ever made. The only reason why it goes in front of Justice League is because it's a complete movie, but even that is just like, okay, let's start from the top. First and foremost, Wonder Woman comes out. We all love Wonder Woman. We're like, oh my God, I can't wait to see more Wonder Woman. I love Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot was amazing in this movie with Chris Pine and the rest of the cast. I need to see more of her. I need new Wonder Woman content. Give me new Wonder Woman content. Please make a good sequel. Oh my God. And then the trailer finally comes out and we're like, oh my God, this is it. The trailer, paints this aesthetic-y movie that has this 80s theme, and you're thinking you're going to get an 80s story that is cool, has fun visuals, has a great soundtrack, and it's just one of those movies that's gonna feel like an art piece, so to speak. And then we get this on Christmas Day on streaming services, and it's 3 hours long because for no reason. Okay, I'm tired of pretending otherwise. This movie is 3 hours long for no reason. You feel every minute and every second of this movie. It sucks. It is so frustrating because nothing of any significance happens in this movie. The only significant thing is that for whatever reason, I don't know why they thought this was a good idea, because they never talked about this in any of the other movies. They've introduced magic to the DCEU, and not magic as in the character that everybody loves from Marvel. I'm talking about literal magic. Like, look, I'll use my phone case, okay? This is not my phone case, my glasses case. See, that's how messed up this movie has me. They do the Dragon Tales thing where it's like, you have this rock and you're like, I wish with all my heart. I forgot the Dragon Tales thing, but Dragon Tales a kid, early 2000 kids. If you're watching this video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Dragon Tales, right? The wish with the rock and you're like, oh my God, I wish, right? They introduced that to Wonder Woman, right? So then it's like the whole thing is, oh my God, she misses Steve. Oh my God, it hasn't been the same since Steve died. She's isolated herself away from the world, which, by the way, makes no sense because Wonder Woman ends the movie with her being okay and being at peace with Steve's death, and her understanding that Steve was a hero and he did what he had to be done, and it was for the better in terms of the world and helping bring an end to Ares and making humankind a better place. Like, she ended that movie being fairly at peace. For us to even come to this, and in this sequel, she's miserable, she's sad, she's depressed, and oh my God, I miss Steve. It's just, why, right? So then she works at this museum or whatever, and they're like, we found this rock and it's rumored to have this thing where if you hold it and you make a real wish, right, you get the wish comes true. That's what the legends say, because magic, right? So she makes a wish, and of course, I wish Steve, please come back, because I'm Gal Gadot, and in the first movie I had chemistry with everybody because everybody was better than me in terms of acting, and I have no one here because Cheetah, as much as I like Cheetah doesn't really do much for me. Cheetah in this movie sucks, right? So she wishes for Chris Pine back, but here's the thing, okay? Chris Pine comes back, but he's not Chris Pine. He's Chris Pine's soul in another guy. Wonder Woman sees Chris Pine, but the world doesn't see Chris Pine. You see? Complicated for no reason, right? So then you do this thing, and that alone is just morally questionable, because then they insinuate that something happens in the middle of the night. We all know what I'm talking about here. I'm not gonna get graphic, right? And you realize, like, oh my God, she didn't do the thing with Steve. She did it with the guy who she sees Steve's soul in. And that right there messed up, especially for Wonder Woman, a character with high morals and beliefs and whatnot, right? So that alone sucks, right? And then the whole plot of the movie is Steve comes back. This causes the world to go crazy because the main villain of this movie, Pedro Pascal, you're never gonna see this, but God bless the fact that you somehow overcame the hit that was this movie, because they wasted you in this movie. Maxwell Lord, the character you play, sucks. Nothing about him is cool, nothing about him is interesting, but the fact that he wants to be this guy who can wish things and have magic and, do whatever he wants, whatever, kind of cool idea, I guess, whatever, right? He does the thing where he's the villain, and he figures out that he has a kid, and they show you the kid, and at the end of the movie they have the audacity to make you think he has a relationship with the kid, and it's just like, oh my God, we should feel something. You don't. It sucks. It's dumb, right? But the whole point of this movie, right? Pedro Pascal and Cheetah, they're like and they kind of work together at some point because Cheetah becomes a villain because she ends up, being jealous because Gal Gadot, for all intents and purposes, she's a beautiful person. We all know it. We all fell in love with her with the first Wonder Woman movie. I understand that, real world circumstances might be a little different, but for, at the time, everyone was in love with her, right? So she becomes a villain just out of envy, and then, Cheetah becomes an actual Cheetah at the very end of the movie. And let me show you what Cheetah looked like, right? This was the fight scene when this happens, right? Cheetah becomes a Cheetah after, fighting Wonder Woman, who loses her powers, whatever, right? They finally meet, and then they introduce this golden armor. Dumb idea, because this whole time you mean to tell me she had golden armor and they just didn't use it in the beginning of the movie, but they wanted to set it up for this final arc, whatever, right? So then they do this, right? They do that. It's like, oh my god, you can't see anything. There's barely any lighting. You want to know why? Because let me tell you, Cheetah looks dumb. So anyways, they fight for like a minute or two at the whatever fighting scene. She does the thing. She breaks the eagle's arms off or whatever, the wings. And you're like, oh wow, this is cool. And then you realize none of the movie was worth it because the movie teaches all the wrong lessons. Steve sacrifices himself again. Poor Steve and his soul. He tells Wonder Woman, go. Be the hero the world needs. They need you. Go. I'll be okay. I love you. Don't worry. I love you. Something that she's known since before the movie started, because she knew at the end of the movie that Steve loved her. But it's okay. We had a flashback scene. Who needs to remember that at this moment? That whole flashback negates the existence of this movie. But I digress, right? And then you realize I just spent 3 hours of my life watching a movie that was boring, has barely any action scenes besides the mall scene and them sitting in the invisible airplane. That scene's kind of cool. And Cheetah sucks, Maxwell Lord sucks. The whole thing I'm trying to say, okay, I know, I just went on a tangent. The whole thing I'm trying to say here is that Wonder Woman 1984 is a horrible movie, a terrible sequel. I cannot believe they've released this. I cannot believe the long-awaited sequel to a movie that made everyone believe that, DC finally figured itself out was such a disaster, such a mess, such a waste of time, such an aimless and pointless movie that, like, you look back at it, right? And as a person who loved Wonder Woman, right? Like, I look at the two characters and I'm like, they just taught the lesson that she already learned in the first movie. So what was the point of this? You introduced magic and that did nothing for this movie. Like, what are we doing here? Why was this what you dropped on Christmas Day? You literally gave us coal when this movie released. This movie sucks. Disaster. I hate Wonder Woman 1984. I despise it. I hate it. Everything about it is bad. It sucks. Even the posters suck. I'm sorry. Movie sucks. It is one of the worst DCEU movies ever made. Now, I've had my fix of ranting about the DCEU movies, such as, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Suicide Squad, right? But what I don't want to rant about and need to highlight is a movie such as Zack Snyder's Justice League, okay? Look, it's a miracle that this movie was even released, let alone good. I cannot believe that we live in a timeline where after the disaster that was Justice League, okay, that movie was such a disaster, all of us were like, there's no way that the Snyder Cut is good. There's no way that this movie is going to be anything worth living up to. We're going to look at this movie, we're going to be like, see, Snyderverse fans, you were wrong. Turns out they were right. Even the critics like this movie. Is it a little too long? Yes, it's a little too long. You could have cut, I don't know, 30 minutes worth of slow-mo time, because this movie, way too many slow-mo. Like, you could cut that out, and this would have made this movie far more digestible. But thank God, Zack Snyder, you were just so smart in terms of, let me add chapters because this is so long. Let me let people be able to break it up and watch it whenever they want and be able to spread it across different days. Brilliant idea. Thank God you did that, because if you did it, I would have nothing but bad things to say about this movie. Okay, brilliant. Visual effects, stellar. The team up takes forever, worth it eventually. Steppenwolf looks 10 times better and has a better motivation. Darkseid looks good even though he does nothing. I love the team up. I love the rebirth of Superman, even though, we have the infamous Gal Gadot moment, which again emphasizes that Gal Gadot cannot act outside when, she's aside people like Chris Pine, where she's like, Kal-El, no! Terrible scene. Oh my God, awful. But point is, this movie is a good movie. It is a good thing that it released. It just kind of opened Pandora's box. I was gonna say Pandora's box, because it allowed Zack Snyder's fans to, have peace in the sense of this thing that we've always assumed was true and was real. They got that, right? But then it's also like, this kind of opened the door of like, maybe there's a chance. maybe they'll restore the Snyderverse. If we keep spamming the hashtags, they will give it to us. They gave us the movie, they'll give us the rest of this. Like, terrible. Like, it was just one of those situations where they had to release it, right? But guess what? You know, I kind of sometimes wish they did it, even though I know a decade from now, 5 years from now, DC fans, comic book fans, we're gonna be looking back at this movie and we're gonna be like, man, can you believe they released that? Can you believe we got that? Isn't that kind of insane? Like, it's always gonna be a funny story. It's always gonna be like an, oh my god, the Snyderverse were fans right, or the Snyderverse fans were right story. It's just, I wish there was clear communication that even though we're releasing this, doesn't mean we're ever restoring the Snyderverse. If they just gave us that blanket statement before the release, I would be, you know, a lot nicer on the fact that they've released this, even though it was a good thing. I'm happy that they've released this thing, okay? So I like this movie. I still like to revisit it. I think the Flash, you know, turning back time and doing the thing with the music, and then him running, even though he runs terribly, fantastic scene, one of my favorite scenes in comic book history. It's not up there with the Avengers assembling and whatnot, but the point is, still cool. I love the action in this. Just a little too much slow-mo, a little too much music that's screeching, that's loud for no reason, but for the most part, it is a good movie, and I think it's one of those movies that people will continue to revisit more often than they think. That being said, the Suicide Squad is fine. I don't know what it is about this movie. I've never really talked about James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie. I never really talked about how I feel about this movie. And a big reason for that is because I struggled to give my opinion on this movie. Like, yes, it's a good movie. Yes, it's funny. Yes, it's action-packed. Yes, I like the rat catcher subplot coming full circle and giving us that emotional, satisfying conclusion. I love Starro. I think Starro was hilarious. I think a lot of the team-up moments, such as Peacemaker and Bloodsport, or, you know, the whole team going to save Harley Quinn, and Harley Quinn already being fine, and her being like, you guys were trying to save me? I can't believe it. Like, those moments are all funny, but it's like, I feel nothing watching that movie. I feel nothing in terms of like an emotional connection. Like, yeah, I'm gonna laugh. Yeah, it's gonna be certain moments where I'm gonna be like, oh my god, that was cool. But like, for the most part, it's not like with Wonder Woman or Shazam or Aquaman or Zack Snyder's Justice League, or even in the case of, you know, Man of Steel, where it's like, I can say, oh my god, like, Man of Steel has the flight scene, Birds of Prey has all these funny moments and stellar visuals and fun action sequences and good team-ups and stuff. And I think a big part of that is because they kill off so many characters at the beginning of the movie, and they don't really allow us to maintain the mystery of who is this Suicide Squad, who is going to stay alive, who are going to be the final members of the team at the end of the movie. Like, what can, like, let us enjoy the mystery. The fact that so many of them get killed off kind of just ruins the fun for me. Even though it's a good movie, like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh my god, it's a bad movie, it's terrible. It's just, to me, it's fine because I don't really have that much of a connection with it. I really kind of sometimes think it's a little overrated. I know that might sound wild because it's such a good movie and it gets praised all the time, and I typically really like James Gunn's work, especially with the Guardians of the Galaxy, who are some of my favorite Marvel characters in Marvel movies. It's just, the Suicide Squad isn't a movie that's made for me. You know what movie is made for me? Black Adam. Black Adam is fine. I think Black Adam is a fine movie. I know there's a lot of history with this. I know we all meme it to death because of the, you know, the power and the hierarchy or the DCEU are forever about to be changed. Like, I know we make fun of the quotes. I know we make fun of the fact that this movie was everywhere. I mean, good lord, what was the budget for marketing this movie? This movie was everywhere, from Roblox to, I believe it was in different collabs such as, you know, Fortnite, and they did a bunch of things across a bunch of different games. It was just like, if it could go there, it was there. Like, good lord. But the problem with Black Adam more so than that, more so than The Rock forcing this movie to come out, more so than The Rock forcing Henry Cavill to don the suit and getting his hopes up, what really messes this movie up for me is that this movie is 3 different movies in one. And I know that sounds crazy, but here's the thing, okay? You have movie 1. This movie is the Black Adam origin story movie. How Black Adam came to be, who Black Adam was, what happens with his power, and the circumstances, and what happens if he gets brought back to life. Then you have movie 2, and that is the JSA, because there's a JSA origin story in this, and the JSA gets formed in this. And I love the JSA, even though they're a small team. I think they have a fantastic chemistry, right? That team, so much fun. I would have watched a movie of just them outside of Black Adam. Like, the fact that they didn't just do that is mind-boggling, because they were cooking with that cast in their costumes, right? Then, outside of those 2 movies, you have the JSA versus Black Adam, and that's a sequel realistically, right? So you have all of this going on in this 2.5-hour movie, and then you have the music that is just, at some point it's hype, at some point you're like, what are we doing, right? And all of it just feels like it's just so bloated. It's like, it's the Batman v Superman problem, except there's actual moments of like action and character moments that you can like, so it doesn't feel like a slog. And even though they're introducing so many different things and following different things up and connecting different story elements, it feels less exposition heavy than Batman v Superman. And then on top of that, the final act is so much fun. The visual effects is so much fun with Dr. Fate. I love Hawkman's suit. I love the whole JSA in general. Like, I love so much of that. And I think what deserves a lot of credit and what deserves to be discussed more than anything else is the simple fact that The Rock finally disappeared into a role that isn't himself. Like, he finally acted as someone that isn't The Rock. And I think he deserves to give credit. Like, I don't even know if he deserved it, but I feel like we almost have to give him credit for that, because it's one of the biggest criticisms that we give The Rock every single time we possibly can. So there's that as well. I also like Black Adam's suit. I think Black Adam's suit is cool as hell. And of course, I think more than anything else, I kind of like the yellow filter. I know that's a controversial opinion. I just like the ancient vibe it gives off. I don't know, something about it works for me. So yeah, Black Adam is fine. I have more emotions towards it than even Birds of Prey, so I might even put it above Birds of Prey. But the point is, I don't hate it as much as other people. I kind of like it more than I think I'm willing to admit. But overall, even though it's kind of, bloated in a way, because I make jokes about how, like, I even forgot that the Satan or the devil character, I don't even know the character's name, I'm gonna be honest with you, but the fact that a devil CGI character comes in for like 5 minutes at the very end, and then they kill him 1, 2, 3, and they're like, yeah, we know you don't care about that, let's get back to the actual things you guys care about. Like, even that's laughable to me. Like, that could have been cut. We did not need a continuation of that, but it is what it is, right? Overall, I like Black Adam. I think it's hilarious that it also flopped somehow. I love the memes of the hierarchy stuff. That joke will forever live in terms of the DC fandom, and I think it's, we should have gotten a continuation of the JSA, even though the movie flops, but that's just me. Now, if you thought me ranting about Wonder Woman 1984 was bad, let me introduce you to a movie that's even worse. Oh my God, I hate Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I hate this movie. Like, I don't hate a lot of things in life. This movie is one of them. I want to be able to say positive things about this movie. I really do, because I genuinely like the first Shazam movie. I think the first Shazam movie is underrated. I think the first Shazam movie is underappreciated, but this movie sucks. There is nothing good about this movie. The Daughters of Atlas, horrible villains. Oh my God. The cast of characters mostly being the adult, Terrible decision. Should have just continued to focus on the kids, because the kids were the heart of the first Shazam movies. And then Zachary Levi taking up so much screen time despite not acting like the Billy Batson we actually know. And Zachary Levi, what was going on with his voice? He just sounded so annoying. And then the fact that Zachary Levi blamed this movie failing on, Instagram Live because of, The Rock and Black Adam. Like, it's not even a contest. Black Adam is so much better than Shazam Fury of the Gods. What are we even talking about, right? And then on top of that, like the Skittles promotion, the Skittles joke, it's like, what are we doing? It's like hashtag ad. At least admit it, do a sponsorship or something to set that up, so we're all like, oh, there's no way there could just be a Skittle joke in this movie, even though they do it so many times. And then to make things worse, like, oh my god, I can't. Dude, the fact that, they do something cool in this movie where Billy Batson decides at the very end, like, you know what? I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to take down the Daughters of Atlas, and then I am going to go and save the world because I need to do that. Not just for me, not just for my family, but for the world, right? He does it. Then he dies. And you're like, this is a kid's movie. You're killing off Billy Batson, the protagonist. What are we doing? Are you for real? Right? Because that never happens in superhero movies. And then you're like, okay, he's dead. How are they going to bring him back? And then the family, they see him and they take her to this place. I don't even remember the name. Like, I don't even care to remember the name, right? But then, right? Oh my God. The worst thing in DCEU history, possibly. You're thinking, oh my god, this is gonna be cool. They're gonna bring back the thing. Maybe the rock that Wonder Woman had is somehow gonna be found or referenced in a newspaper, and they're gonna go get it and wish him back. No. What they do is, oh my god, Billy Batson, everyone's sad, he's dead, the family's crying, they're like, what are we gonna do? And then the camera pans, slowly but surely, and there she is, Gal Gadot, after the disastrous Wonder Woman 1984, and then for the super loud for no reason, like that alone killed that Wonder Woman theme song for me. I can never forgive Shazam for doing that. Like, talk about one of the worst things humanly possible. Like, it killed all interest in that theme song from that moment alone, because she's there, the theme song's blasting, she brings him back to life, ruins the whole movie by doing that. Because I was just, I don't know, having the first crossover between the DCEU and all these characters that share this universe but never interact, being Wonder Woman, who we all kind of hate now because her movie saw coming in to revive, Billy Batson, and then Billy Batson comes to life and then he flirts with her, and you're like, what are we doing? I understand he's a kid and you're trying to make a joke, but like, that's kind of weird. And it's just like, the whole thing sucks. It's such a bad sequel. And it's just like, I don't understand what they were going for. Like, yes, I understand they have to lean into the childlike wonder. I understand they need to lean into being a child-focused movie. But there were ways to go about it that wasn't this. Shazam 2 sucks. It's one of the worst DC movies ever made. I hate this movie. I will never like this movie, and I love Shazam 1, and I will always stand by Shazam 1, despite, what Zachary Levi and the mess of a person he is. But the point is, this sequel, horrible, okay? Now, you know what else is horrible? The Flash. But The Flash is not worse and not in the same tier of Shazam and Wonder Woman and Justice League. Like, yes, it's bad. Yes, it's a disaster. Yes, it's a mess. But it does everything right with following up Batman 89, which is such an iconic movie and such a beloved character in pop culture, and giving him a continuation that is supposed to build upon his story and give him a satisfying ending that makes sense. Everything about Batman in this movie works. The music, the action, the costume, Michael Keaton, all of it, the Batmobile, the whole, even the Batcave, all of it works. And I am such a specific person when it comes to Batman, okay? I loved how they treated Michael Keaton's Batman. So I always will say that The Flash has that over the other 3 movies in the bottom tier, right? Like, I understand The Flash is a mess. I understand that Ezra Miller, killed this movie's chance of success. I understand that Ezra Miller, terrible person from all accounts, apparently. I understand that the visual effects are horrific. Like, I don't know what they were thinking, and having, Andy Muschietti come out and be like, it's because, you're seeing the world through the Flash's eye. You should have said nothing, my guy. I am very picky about people when they say, like, oh my god, this looks like a PS2 game. No. The Flash looks like a PS2 game. Like, it's just laughably bad. And then it doesn't help that they do the multiverse thing and then they don't acknowledge Grant Gustin. Like, why wasn't Grant Gustin in this movie? It would have made more sense, right, if Ezra Miller's Flash, runs away after getting, emotional about his mom or whatever, and then he ends up in the Arrowverse timeline, and then they meet, and then they fight, and then they try to reconcile things, and then Grant Gustin's Flash is like, let's go find a person, I know a guy, and then they go through this multiverse, and then they end up somehow still stumbling upon, Michael Keaton's Batman, and that stuff still works, They bring, Supergirl, I guess, since there's a Supergirl figure in this movie. I really don't think Sasha Calle really got, what she deserved. I feel like she deserved to be better because she was so excited to be in a DC movie, but I digress, right? So all those key elements work, but where the movie changes is that, Grant Gustin's Flash teaches Ezra Miller's Flash. They've already met, so they have that connection. We don't need to do the CGI fest with, the second Ezra Miller, and then he learns from them, and then Grant Gustin being the hero that he is, he gets the send-off that he deserves. He gets the hero moment of saving the multiverse and traveling through the multiverse. We get to hear the that's my interpretation of the Flash theme song. I know, perfect. I get it, right? And then they do the thing of giving him the hero send-off, and that motivates Ezra Miller Flash, and Ezra Miller Flash goes off to save the multiverse and save everybody while everything is colliding, and he takes a lesson of running, because run, Barry, run. And then, we get the send-off, and we get to see Ezra Miller's Flash at a funeral with Grant Gustin's friends in the Arrowverse waving goodbye. And, I guess Ezra Miller's Flash ends up, having a memento, or whether it's the mask or the emblem or the boots or anything to kind of certify that the Flash is now gone from the Arrowverse, right? And, to give him that heroic send-off and a last goodbye or whatever to the Arrowverse team or whatever, that would have worked, because even though it's slightly different, right, it's still similar and falls in line with what the Flash was trying to do to begin with as a movie. That would have been better. That would have put, butts in seats. That would have gotten people to go see the movie. That would have gotten people to be like, oh my god, I believe all these clearly paid by DC press takes of, guys, this is the best superhero movie. It's even better than The Dark Knight. And we all know how we feel about The Dark Knight. Like, terrible PR move, by the way, horrible. But the point is, that would have been more compelling than what we got. And I feel like as a person, I should not be able to, on the fly, while recording this live, be able to come up with the plot of a movie that makes more sense than what we got from people who actually got paid to write this story. Like, disaster. Okay? The Flash is a disaster. I can't even. Like, everything about this movie, bad, sucks. Everything from the costume of the Flash that Ezra wears, to the second Ezra, to the CGI, to not using Supergirl, to, all these different things, and bringing Zod back because they wanted to retcon that the Flash was always there when, Zod came to attack, and, Superman was there, and so was Batman. Like, they were all there together, like, trying to do that thing of, like, they were always there. It's a multiverse. See? No. Doesn't work, didn't work, horrible idea, waste of everybody's time, one of the biggest flops in movie history. Talk about an absolute disaster. But even then, it is still not as bad as Shazam! Fury of the Gods, Wonder Woman 1984, and of course, Justice League. Now, this brings us to the final two movies of the DCEU before this video is over. And we are going to have the biggest hot take of this video, okay? Blue Beetle is one of the best DCEU movies ever made. I'm sorry, I'm so unapologetic about this movie. I love this movie. This movie is such a good movie. It is so underrated, so underappreciated. The visual effects are stellar. Xolo Maridueña is perfect in the role of Jaime Reyes. I love the Reyes family. I love how this movie goes about finally introducing this new element of, like, the family is in on the main protagonist being a hero. Like, the fact that they brought that little twist, and then they do everything right in terms of, let's do right by the Latino culture, let's make everybody laugh, and those who know will get the jokes and the music and, the heartfelt messages that are spread throughout the movie, such as using Jenny Cord to give the perspective of someone who doesn't have a close family and someone who doesn't have the ability to rely on a family, and showing the importance a family to someone who doesn't even realize how important family is, to have Jaime's dad give Jaime that speech where he's like, you know, you might not understand that, but this moment right now, this moment right here plays a role in your life, and you're not going to realize it until later on, because right here, right now is what matters. Don't worry about what you can't control. And then to have, you know, Xolo Maridueña talk to his family towards the end of the movie after he gets freed, right? And his mom, you know, she liked with the Kajida, and she gets the Kajida to, you know, want to go save the world. And Xolo's like energized. And then they do the pop culture Easter eggs of like the scorpion from Mortal Kombat's over here. He's like, does the thing with the thing from the back. It's like, what a movie, right? And then the fact that the Blue Beetle shuttle or the bug, whatever you want to call it, does the thing where it twists and turns and has a whole fight scene to itself as George Lopez, who is hilarious in the movie. And George Lopez, we all know it. We all been there. Again, 2000s kids. Y'all remember waking up 2 a.m. loud theme song, George Lopez show. You know, you get it. Like, I would think, you know, all these years later, George Lopez would have let me down after being such a key part of my childhood, right? But no, he didn't. George Lopez in Blue Beetle, he was fantastic. He was such a good mentor to Xolo. He was the weird uncle that every Hispanic kid has. Like, he was perfect in this movie. And I think the only thing that brings this movie down is the simple fact that the villains suck. But even then, the villains get overtaken by the stellar visuals, the beautiful visual effects, the gorgeous suit, which, side note real quick, yo, the Blue Beetle suit is so good and so well designed that it is on the same tier or echelon that Sam Raimi's Spider-Man suit is. That's how good the Blue Beetle suit is, okay? But anyways, I digress. This movie, even though, yes, it has the flaw of weak villains, it is so good. It is so heartfelt. It is so emotional. The moments that, you know, we get to see Xolo get taken around and the Kajida's making jokes and making fun of Jaime and, you know, is doing the thing of testing out different parts of the suit. Like, those moments are so cool, and we rarely get to see those type of moments in comic book movies. Blue Beetle is such a good movie, and I feel like us who were at the front lines trying to market this movie because DC wouldn't for whatever reason, the Blue Beetle Battalion, us out there on the front lines of social media, we knew now and we knew then, and I'm telling you right now, there's gonna be a discussion when the Blue Beetle animated series comes out and everyone's gonna rewatch the movie and they're gonna be like, wow, that movie is actually one of the best movies. Why did I not like this? This movie's underrated. And us Blue Beetle fans, we know, and we will continue to know. Blue Beetle, one of the best DCEU movies ever made. It's not close. I know it's a hot take, but guys, folks, whatever, this movie rules. I love this movie. I will never get tired of it. I'm so glad we're getting to see a continuation of that. I hope we get to see more of the family, because I love the family, especially the grandma. We all love her. She was amazing. She was the star of that movie. But yes, Blue Beetle, one of the best DCEU movies ever made, and I am tired of pretending otherwise. But for now, let's go to the finale of this thing. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, you suck too. One of the worst DCEU movies ever made. Oh my god, okay? Look, I love the first Aquaman movie. I'm a big fan of the first Aquaman movie. Aquaman 1 rules. This, everything bad, everything sucks. It's weirdly edited, so characters act different in different scenes. Amber Heard's not really in this movie, so that love story doesn't continue, even though they have a kid together. Black Manta is misused, and the movie gets you hyped through the trailers thinking like, oh my god, we're finally gonna get a proper villain. This is the moment of us, you know, having a revenge story that will put us on edge and have us concerned, and nothing really comes of that because we find out that he's being mind controlled, and that is a boring story mechanic. Orm in this movie acts like a bumbling idiot. He acts nothing like the stoic villain that he was in the first movie. He is a disaster in this movie. I don't like his dynamic with Aquaman, who's even worse than he was in the first movie, because oh my god, the character who's a bumbling friendly giant is somehow a doofus in this movie and just all around dumber. I don't understand it. It's such a weird continuation. And then on top of that, don't find this movie to be enjoyable to watch. It's just boring, uninteresting, not really that compelling of a sequel, and it adds almost nothing to Aquaman as a character besides the kid, and the kid barely gets to really shine in this movie in terms of being important to the story. This movie, not good. It's a bad sequel. It's weirdly edited, and I can specifically highlight this because I remember this vividly, right? I'm in the theater and it's the beginning of the movie, and then, you know, one of the agents, I forgot his name, he's in Marvel, he's the guy from Ant-Man movies who comes to always check when, you know, Scott is apparently escaping, whatever. He was also in WandaVision, right? And I forgot his name off the top of my head. I think it's Randall or Rascal something. I'll put a picture up when I'm talking about this, right? He's in the movie, right? And he sees somebody literally get stabbed to death by a serpent who out of nowhere, just when they go to discover like some ice area, because that's where Black Manta wants to go, right? They do this thing and the serpent kills him and he freaks out. He's terrified. He's a mess, right? And then it cuts to the next scene and you're like, did he not just, is he ignoring that he's in the area where the serpent who just killed somebody in front of him, he's walking in that? Because he's just talking like it's normal, talking like it's, you know, nothing just happened. Like he doesn't miss anything. What is going on, right? And you realize, oh no, they just cut different parts of different versions of the movie together, and you realize that as the movie goes on, because there are different moments of the movie where characters act different from the previous scene you see them in, and you're like, how did they fumble this? And then to end the movie with Aquaman giving this speech and then him ending it like he's Batman, of like, and I am Aquaman, and then him yelling, it's just like, that wasn't satisfying. That wasn't fun. That wasn't enjoyable. Like, I walked out of the movie theater angry. I was so angry, I couldn't even bring myself to make a video because the idea of me rewatching that movie again is it just angers me. In the same way, the idea of even sitting through Shazam! Fury of the Gods or Wonder Woman 1984 or Justice League just pisses me off, because oh my god, each and every one of these movies are a waste of time. Each and every one of these movies are a mess, a disaster, have terrible editing, just completely ruin everything about the prequel, like, or the predecessor, right? It's just a mess, and that is why all of these movies are in the same tier. They are the worst DCEU movies ever made, and that's why, if you ask me, like, if I was to separate them, I would put Aquaman, I would put Shazam, actually, because it's a cohesive movie, it just sucks, in one tier, and then put them separate under. But I don't feel like doing that because they all suck equally. They're all bad. They suck. Like, the rest of these movies, though, again, like, I am glad that I managed to go through memory lane without losing my way throughout this video. I am glad I was able to remember so much about each and every one of these movies and have so many different things to say. I'm relieved that this chapter of being a DC fan is over. I'm relieved because, my god, what a mess. This feels like the infamous gif from It's Always Sunny where, like, Charlie, you've seen the gif, I'll put it up, don't worry, where the guy's talking, he's in the newsroom and he's like, everything is connected loosely. That's what this tier list looks like. Not because it doesn't make sense, but because the projects themselves do not make sense. There's no cohesiveness. After Batman v after Wonder Woman, we'll say. Like, after Wonder Woman, it's like, yeah, whatever sticks, and then we'll figure it out later. Like, thank God. At the very least, we got Blue Beetle. Like, the fact that that movie almost was an HBO Max movie or straight up canceled like Batgirl, oh my god. Thank God this got a theatrical release. I am so thankful that I own this movie physically because I love that movie. But regardless, this is where I stand with the DCEU. These are my final thoughts about each and every one of these movies. I am ready to leave this behind me. I am ready to walk away and just move forward and hope that Superman is good. Hope that, you know, in the future, if you somehow stumble upon this video later on when Superman's already out and my review video is already out, like, I hope that by then I'm happy, because I never want to experience a mess like this. And that is all, folks. I am glad the DCEU is over. I am glad that I never have to revisit these movies again, because for the most part, I will only revisit 3. Aquaman, Blue Beetle, and Wonder Woman. You know, it's been fun. It was fun going down memory lane. It was fun to talk about all these movies again. It was fun to rank them in a tier list. It was fun to rant. It was fun to, get nostalgic for a few moments. It was fun to look back at some of the most important times of my life because these movies kind of shaped me not only as a comic book fan, not only as a comic book reader, but even as a reviewer and as someone who talks about movies almost every single day of their lives. I'm just relieved that not only is this chapter done, but we're still somehow getting DC movies on the big screen. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still shocked that we have a Superman movie coming out soon at the time of this video's release. Like, it's just crazy because the last few movies were just such a disaster, and the whole universe was a disaster, that the fact that we're even getting more movies should be considered a blessing. But for the most part, as I said, this is going to be the last time I talk about the DCEU, unless it's about something like Blue Beetle, since it's getting an animated series. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you want to shift a hierarchy or two, if you have rough judgments about my tier list, let me know in the comments down below. Again, I'm just here walking down memory lane and ranking these movies and discussing these movies one last time to answer any curiosities and to let you all know where I stand with all of these movies. But I'm glad that I never have to force myself to talk about these movies again. But I will always talk about Blue Beetle. That's always going to be the case. I love Blue Beetle. If you know, you know. That is my favorite DC movie ever made. But for now, that's all, folks.